Hello, folks. So you may have heard of the famous book running around the streets called I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. And you might be like, who dat? Why do people keep talking about this book? Should I read this book? Is it even any good? I'm here to tell you those answers. I totally read this book with the knowledge that I was going to turn this into a book review for you guys. And so I'm just like, being like, we'll see. We'll see. Everyone's saying it's great, but we'll see. I listened to the audiobook and decided to go in with a clean slate. Like, I didn't hear too much about it other than, you know, about Jennette McCurdy from the Nickelodeon TV show iCarly, which I only ever saw like a few episodes of. I have to say, like, I do not go out of my way to read celebrity books because most of the time I just don't care. I just don't care enough. And the other thing is like, most of these celebrities are not celebrity writers, right? So either they get a ghostwriter that just bangs out a book and is just as far as the writing goes, or they write it and their writing's not very good, and I be snooty, so that already like turns me against it if I have to like read through, like I have to like struggle through the reading of it. But then also, so many celebrities will either A, not tell you anything because they don't want to burn bridges, or they'll just kind of word vomit everything they know, and it's just kind of like a gossip rag kind of thing where it's like there's no real quality to it. There's no like reflection or like in hindsight things they've learned. It's just they're like, hey, this is stuff that will like hopefully give me money, or like here's my chance to like talk shit about someone. So who knows if I would have picked up this book if I didn't have the intention of making a book review video on it. This is on like the top list for me of memoirs, period. I listened to the audiobook. Actually would be really excited to reread it just as like a physical copy. I can tell even from the audio how sharp the writing is and how much care and detail was put in, not into just the contents and the reflection side of it, but also just on a craft level, like line by line was just so good, which is hard to see in a lot of books nowadays, not just memoirs. And I thought this was a great memoir, and I wasn't a fan of Jennette McCurdy. I didn't hate her, but I, like, whatever. I knew she existed. I had watched like a handful of episodes of iCarly, but I wasn't a stan. Like, I was a little bit too old by the time our iCarly came out, and I don't know, just it was whatever. Her story is heartbreaking, but she does such a great job of infusing levity into it, right? It's not just jokes for joke's sake or something that feels like jarring if done incorrectly, but it really flows with her storytelling, like side by side. Like, this is a person who got through a lot of hard things using humor, and that shows so naturally in the writing. And she takes you through, walks you through her relationship with her mother, the relationship with her dad, her siblings, this dysfunctional family dynamic that's at play between her and the grandparents, and her codependency with her mother. And I won't reveal too much. I don't want to spoil it for you, because I do think you should go out and read it if you're in the right headspace, right? Like, it is very dark. It is really sad. There's disordered eating talked about in it. So if you're in the midst of that, maybe this is a pass for now, but so good. And so mature, like the amount of forethought and understanding that she's come to at such a young age is incredible. Because it's one of those things where it's like a memoir needs two things, right? It needs a life that has been lived. You know, if you haven't done much, it's hard to write a good memoir on that. And so that's why they oftentimes don't recommend just a young person write it, because it's like, go live your life a little bit and then come back and tell us. The second thing is that reflection, right? So maybe you had a lot of interesting stuff happen to you, but you're not ready to have that perspective and look back on that and like create art around it, create a narrative around it. It's just like a hodgepodge of like, this happened and this happened and this happened, and it kind of gets a feeling of like a 5-year-old telling you a really long story. And I think I recently heard that she got a deal to write more books, so I'm excited. Like, I don't even know what they're about, but I'll probably check them out just because of how much I like the writing in this. The other thing too is that the chapters are crisp. Like, she knows how to pace things. She's not lingering in a really melodramatic way that you could very easily do when you have this much trauma in a story. And she doesn't like breeze past things because she's not ready to talk about them, right? It's that perfect blend. You can tell how her work in TV and movies has helped shape that pacing because it is very scene oriented and holds that narrative structure you see a lot with a visual TV show or film. And like the other thing too is like, so you get past her childhood, you're reading about all these other things she's dealing with her career in Hollywood now, and then she starts talking about her experience with dating and things like that, and it tells you how much like I bonded with her in this short amount of time with this audiobook, because certain things would happen like in her dating life or in her relationships where it'd be like out loud in my car because I was on a road trip while I was listening to this going, no, she just deserves something good. Like I think that's impressive. Whenever you elicit a reaction from the reader, in this case the listener, I think that's a very telltale sign of someone who's knocking out a home run here. I laughed, I cried, I was like verbalizing my feelings about certain people in her life, and for her to be so young again makes it tricky to wrap up a memoir, and I think she did a great job of that, of like, this is part of the process, this is the journey, this is what I know so far. And yeah, there's just such all of like the feelings of humanity in it. It was a very touching memoir. And the other thing too is that the audiobook is read by her, and that was also a killer because her tone, her pitch, everything was just so on point. And then towards the end when she was getting emotional, you could hear it in her voice, and I was like, oh, I just want to give her a hug. What's the hype with this book? It's a really good book. One of the best memoirs I've read in a long time. And for it to be coming from such a young person, for it to be coming from a person in Hollywood that was willing to pull back the veil of things in Hollywood, things with her life, things with other people she encountered, and getting really raw and honest. Like, she admits when she's fucked up. She admits when like she was the one. Like, she's not always likable throughout the whole course of the memoir, and I think that's so hard for anyone who's been in the entertainment industry because like they put so much of their self-worth into it. And so bearing it all like that and showing when she was doing some not so great things is bold. And then sharing parts of her childhood trauma and trauma that happened after her childhood. Oh, the amount of like, oof, you gotta be with a good counselor if you're gonna release a book like this. That's all I'm saying. Because that's like, I can't imagine myself doing that, much less doing that when I have the kind of publicity and public scrutiny that she does. Oh, so I would highly recommend this book. It's one of the few books that I think just, the whole checklist is there. You have good content, good writing, good insight, good perspective, good pacing. Like, I couldn't think of anything in this book where I'm like, I don't know about that. It was just really good, guys. So if you can, check it out. I think you can't go wrong with either audiobook or like a print copy. If you have read it, let me know what you think down below. If you haven't read this book, is it on your to-read list? Let me know down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!